Appreciate the panelists for being here. I want to focus on one of the under-discussed components of the housing crisis in our country today, and that is its connection to mass illegal immigration. And just to sort of put a fine point and explain where I'm coming from on that and why I'm raising this issue is, I think that a lot of our friends on the other side of the aisle have convinced themselves that lax immigration is somehow a compassionate thing to do. And yet if you take 5 to 10 million people and you introduce them into a country over 2 years, and you're talking about you increase the demand for housing because those 5 to 10 million people need housing, while at the same time the supply of housing is relatively inelastic. So with that in mind, there are a couple pieces of research that we've sort of been looking at just as I focus on this particular issue. You do see very predictable increases in housing costs and rents when you have mass immigration into a country, into a metro area, even into a county. Combine that increase in rents and increase in housing costs with another unusual component of the effect on mass immigration and housing costs, and it's that in the neighborhood where you have the highest inflow of immigration, you also have declining home prices. So if you take those two pieces of evidence together, what you basically get is rich people who have homes in low immigration areas benefit from our mass immigration policies, and everybody else finds the American dream of home ownership further and further away because we've effectively invited 5 to 10 million people into our country to break our laws. I think that we talk too much about this, not that the law enforcement component doesn't matter, not that the fentanyl overdoses don't matter, they matter a great deal to the people of Ohio. We cannot, as a country, absorb 10 million people and still provide high-quality housing to the rest of our citizens. It just doesn't, the math doesn't work, the numbers don't make sense. The increase in housing prices and rents is clear for all to see. With that in mind, in 2019, the Trump administration, Secretary Carson and HUD proposed what I think of as a common sense rule to require the verification of eligible immigration status for any recipients of federal housing aid. And Mr. Lipsitz, I want to direct the conversation to you and this question to you because you oppose that rule, as I understand. Is that correct?
That I oppose? Yes.
Okay. I just like to understand
my
why.
Organization.
I just like to understand why and what is the argument for not limiting federal housing aid to American citizens? I think these programs are really important, and I think it destroys the political will for these programs when we extend them to people who aren't even citizens of the country.
Well, first off, as a fellow Buckeye, thank you very much for pointing the question my way. And you know, when the full committee met and you raised that issue and my research director was here to testify and talk about it, we went back to the shop, pulled the research from the Buckeye Institute and from Cato that happened in 2017, 2019 on exactly the issue you're talking about and took a look at it. And it was interesting to see that the headline elements of that research is that there's no good reason to deny this population an opportunity to buy homes and work in our communities. And the research itself actually positively talks about the impact of being able to support this element of the workforce. Specific to your question about folks' immigration status for federal programs, we're talking about our workforce here. These are folks who, you know, in my home counties in Ohio, were there running the tractors across soybean and cornfields and working adjacent to silo and have an opportunity to live somewhere with the dignity of someone who has come to the country and is working hard to do so is exactly the kind of thing that we can lean into. The challenge to having that here is not from their immigration status, but it's the demands of the employer at that grain silo, on that farm, who desperately needs that workforce. And the programs that we're talking about within the context of this act are ones that help put that worker in that location in a place where they can get to work every day.
So thanks to Mr. Lipsitz, and I'm running low on my time here, so I won't ask another question. But I think, look, we don't want to be cruel to people. There's no reason to deny benefits for the sake of denying benefits. I think the point is that, one, we live in a world of limited resources, and so do these resources go, especially in a world of sky-high deficits, to American citizens or elsewhere? I think they should go to American citizens. The second point is I really think that folks, I think of as aligned on the issue of we need to provide high-quality housing to our rural people, to our urban people, to everybody in between. It really destroys the political will for these programs when they're extended to people who in some cases are only here for having broken our laws. Not that they're bad human beings, but that they shouldn't be here according to the social compact that we've designed. I think that's an important part of this, and I wish that we all thought a little bit more seriously about this, not just as compassionate towards immigrants and immigration, which of course is important, but compassionate towards American citizens too. Thank you, and I yield.
If I could just interject.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to just ask if you would like to say a word in response, Ms. Mackwell. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, because we've been talking about the Section 521 rental assistance program through USDA. And under that program, non-citizens are not eligible for that program. And policies that limit housing generally based on citizenship status really are not, they don't seem to be targeted at people who don't have legal status. And instead what they do is deter people who are actually eligible for that housing. They deter them from applying because there is confusion about who is eligible in those cases. So I just think that, and I'm happy to provide additional information about the eligibility for the different federal housing programs.
So, Ms. Maxwell, I appreciate that, and I don't want to belabor the point or turn it into a debate. But one, I'm not focused purely on Section 521. There are obviously other federal housing programs too. And second, the rule in question, I don't think that it would change the law. I appreciate and agree with your point that federal housing assistance rightly is not extended to illegal immigrants. But there are some verification problems. And I think that it's just simply a question of maybe we should go the extra mile to ensure the people who receive the benefits that are owed to American citizens are actually American citizens. That's my point, and that's my concern.
Thank you, Senator Vance. We'll be happy to have another round of questions if people have more to say about this.